Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Funky Junkie Inspiration Avenue Saturday Showcase. In part 2, we are going to be creating an adorable Paper Village gingerbread peppermint house. If you'd like to see which supplies I'm going to be using for this project, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the crafty corner. Okay, welcome to part 3 of the Funky Junkie Inspiration Avenue Saturday Showcase. We are going to be creating a peppermint gingerbread house. And to do that, I'm pulling in the die set Paper Village 1. And we're going to be creating this cute little house here. I think I'll be switching up the windows, but it's going to be that little square one. I'm also going to be pulling in some pieces from this die set, Village Collection. I'm pulling in dies from here so that we can cut out these fantastic roofing pieces. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We have die cut our pieces out of the Tim Holtz Craft stock, and we are now going to be creasing our lines so that everything will be super easy to assemble. For creasing our edges on this mini Paper Village, I'm going to be using the remnant rub tool. I picked up this tip from Tim during one of the many YouTube lives, and it works perfectly. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to run it across the crease lines that are already present on this die cut. That's just going to make it that much easier to fold down these tabs, and some of these tabs are awful small, so it's nice to have that little bit of extra pressure to help with the creasing when we are assembling this house. For the house assembly, I'm going to be putting it together with a bit of hot glue. In this case, I really like using hot glue because it sets fast and it's going to give us a fairly neat line when we put the house together. But even if we get a little bit of glue ooze, that will not matter because we're going to be covering our house in grit paste. All right, so we've got our lines. Now on to the folding, and as you can see, these little tabs bend so much easier with that little extra help of the remnant rub tool. Okay, that would be the first portion of the house all neatly folded. We'll go ahead, fold the second piece, just like that, pushing the edges over. If you have trouble getting these edges to fold down neatly, you could always use the edge of your media mat. I've got fingernails, so I find that works pretty well for getting the pieces where I want them. And last but not least, folding the roof. Okay, we're going to move in with a little bit of hot glue. I'm just going to add that to the edge right here. Just a thin line of hot glue. Good. And we'll attach the side of the house. Now I'm using the edge to kind of scrape the hot glue away from that seam line, and that is going to help prevent glue ooze. And I'll just turn this over and I'm going to press down on the seam using the remnant rub tool. There, and that will save my fingers from getting singed with the hot glue. Hot glue on fingers, never a good thing. Okay, so we're going to take this edge next, add the hot glue, and in case you're wondering, I am using a Surebonder fine tipped hot glue gun. I like this one. It has an easy switch, it is cordless, and it applies the glue nice and smooth. Okay, again, I'm going to turn this at an angle and I'm going to scrape away from the edge to avoid the glue ooze. It looks like we're going to get a little bit, but not a big deal. Hold that down. Quick swipe to get rid of the glue ooze. And turning this on its side, I again will use the remnant rub tool to push that edge firmly against the other side of the house. There we go. That is good. All right, we're going to set the hot glue gun aside. And next we're going to add some grit paste to our foundation. So there's the grit paste, and I'm going to be pulling in a palette knife tool. This is a little bit too messy for me to want to use my fingers. So we'll just take that, add a little bit to the palette knife and we're going to just smear that onto the house. This texture paste, grit opaque, is going to give us a lovely texture that is going to mimic baked gingerbread. So we're just going to keep adding that all over. You know, I might have to go in with my fingers. That isn't going so well with the window pieces. Let's see. Well, maybe I'm going to be okay. Yeah, I think I might be. It's really only the front side that has any real detail on it at the moment. Okay, that is working. The door is still opening. That is good. Got the edges. The face of the house is covered. We'll just rotate it and get the sides. Okay, a little bit more grit paste over here. So at this point we can pretty much just butter the grit paste on. It doesn't need to be too thick, but we want good coverage. And I will alter this plain grit paste with a bit of distress paint once it is dry. And that will definitely be giving us our gingerbread look. Okay, a little bit more over here. That is good. Okay. I am liking that quite a bit. And rotate one more time, adding a little bit more grit paste. Just smoothing that down over the sides. Very good. All right. So we now have grit paste on all of the house sides. We're going to set this aside and let it dry. Now let's go ahead and turn our attention to the roof. So the roof is going to be interesting. We've got the shingles already die cut from the village set. Now we just need to alter the pieces. Okay. So here are the village pieces. Now for the roof, I think I want to go with a bit of a peppermint look to these. And to do that, I think I'm going to be painting these pieces red and white. So we're just going to take some distress paint. I'm going to put a little bit here onto the medium mat. And with a paintbrush, we're just going to dab the paint onto the shingles. I'm going to do a random pattern of red and white. I don't think alternating is going to work too well, so we can just use a random pattern. Okay, I'll start with the white and then we'll go in with the red. So what I'm going to do is just paint a bit like this, and then I'll just place bits and pieces all over the roof pieces. So I'm not really doing a pattern. This is going to be more random. I think that's going to give us a better look. There. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to do the same thing with the red, filling in the empty gaps, and we're going to do that for all 6 roofing pieces. Let's go ahead and put this part on fast forward while I work on the paint. Now that we have all of our painted pieces, it's time to add a little bit of sparkle. So I'm going to be using the Glitter Duster by Stampers Anonymous, and we're going to be adding a dusting of glitter over the top of these pieces. And that's going to help with that peppermint look. Okay. So our pieces are looking nice and sparkly. So we'll go ahead and set these aside and let them dry. Let's go ahead and check back on our gingerbread house base. Okay, that is just a little bit damp. So just a small note about grit paste and other mediums. These have very different drying times. Some of them will dry very quickly, but It all depends on which part of the world you are in. If you're in a place like Florida, things might take a while to dry since it is fairly humid down there. And if you're in Arizona, well, your drying time might be now. But that's okay. The best way to know if something is dry or not, touch it. So this is just a little bit damp. I think I'm going to give it a little bit of help with the Ranger Heat tool. It's dry enough so it's not going to bubble, but it is still cool and just slightly tacky to the touch that it is not quite dry enough yet. Okay, next we are going to be painting our little house with some vintage photo paint. So let's go ahead, put a little bit over here. And we're just going to quickly dab that on, and that is going to give us the start to our gingerbread look. So I'm just going to grab a paintbrush, dab that up, and add that to our house. Vintage photo is just the right color for gingerbread. Absolutely love it. So we're just going to add that paint on here, and once the house is dry, then we will go in with some embellishments on it. Okay, that is side one done. Turn it over and let's work on side two. Okay, looks like we'll need a little bit more paint. Easy enough. There we go. Get more paint on the paintbrush and just continue to dab that on. Very good. Okay, back side of the house. This is going to look fantastic once all the alterations have been made to it. Okay, and last side, we're just going to rotate. I'm holding on by the edges to avoid getting my fingers completely covered in paint. There. That is good. I'm just going to do a quick check around the house to make sure everything is covered. I don't want any of those white specks showing right now. Okay. A little something around the door. Good. So we'll set this off to the side, and now we're going to assemble the roof. So now let us put our roof together. To do that, I'm going to be bringing back in the glue gun, and we're going to be taking these shingle pieces and adding them to our roof. Anything that's hanging over the edge, we can easily snip off with the mini tonic snips. So let's go ahead and start adding our shingles. I'm just going to be running a little bit of glue onto the roof. Then we'll pick up a shingle piece and stick it down. Just like that. And then I will do another row. And I'm going to have these rows overlap each other just a little bit. And that should give us a nice roof pattern. Okay. So let's see here. This one can go here. Very good. Time for another layer of glue. I absolutely love putting the shingles on the roof. It is very satisfying, and this part comes together really quickly, so it is satisfying to watch. Okay, that goes there. Looks like I've got space for 2 more rows. And once I have all my rows in place, then I will snip off the edges. Okay, and this piece here. Good, and room for one more. All right, running that line of glue, grabbing our pieces and sticking it down. Okay, that is side one of the roof. So I'm just going to flip this over and we're going to trim off those edge pieces. Okay, so just a quick snip. And there we go. All right, we're going to turn this, and now we're going to work on the other side of the roof. Okay, so starting at the bottom, line of glue, roofing piece, just like that, pressing it down, I'm watching our fingers to make sure that we don't get any of the glue ooze, since that is still pretty warm from the hot glue gun. And we'll just continue to layer. All right. I love the look of the roof, and having the peppermint colored shingles looks really cool. And I definitely am happy that I added that little bit extra on the Distress Clear Rock Candy glitter. Definitely a good look for a peppermint gingerbread house. Okay, pushing that over, pushing that down. Good. 2 more rows and this roof is going to be completed. All right. Let's see. Let's use this piece. Good. And 1 more row. Adding the glue and sticking things down. All right. Let's go ahead and trim these pieces off. So again, flipping it over, taking the Tonic Mini snips and, well, snipping off the edges. Okay. And that side. And I'll check over here. I've got a couple little pieces of overhang. Very good. Okay. Ooh, I really like that roof. Cool. All right, so we're just gonna clear the table and we're going to put the roof onto the house. And we are getting pretty close to my absolute favorite part of house construction. Okay, glue gun is away and we're pulling back the mini house. Okay, now it is time to add the roof, and to do that we're going to be bringing in the glue gun. I'm going to be adding a little bit of glue around the edges on each of these flaps, and then we can attach the roof. So I'm just running a thin little line here and there, and now we attach the roof. So I'm just taking the roof and we're going to place that down. Gonna hold that, make sure that lines up nicely, push in nice and firm. Okay, and there is our roof. That looks great. I am super happy with this. So now that our roof is done, it's time for my favorite part of altering these little houses. So we want to get a gingerbread look on here. And to do that, we are going to be needing some texture paste. And we're going to be adding the texture paste using this silicone frosting tube. So I'm going to be loading this up with some Distress Matte texture paste, and we're going to be using this to squeeze it onto our house to look just like frosting. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is opening this up. I'm going to take the plunger out, and we're going to be loading it with the Distress Matte texture paste. Okay, so I have our container, peeling off the press and seal, and we're going to scoop this out of the jar. So I'm using one of the palette knives, and we're just going to load that into the silicone tube. This part is a little tricky because it's hard to push this down neatly, but using the palette knife we can gently pack this in, and it's going to behave pretty similar to frosting. So if you've had any experience frosting a cupcake or making cookies with frosting on top, then this process should seem pretty familiar. Okay, so I've got as much in here as I can for the moment, but now I'm going to use the plunger and push the texture paste down a bit. There we go. That is good. Just bring the plunger back up, and I'm going to add a bit more. So I'm just going to keep scraping this out of the container, and we will finish loading the tube. Okay, good. Now ideally this should have the consistency of buttercream frosting, if it is stiffer, it is not going to work as well. It will be harder to manipulate and it won't hold its form as nicely. Ideally, this technique works best if you've just opened a fresh container of the texture paste. All right, I think one more scoop will do it. All right, that looks good. Let's put that in here, and then we'll use the plunger to push that down, and we will start icing our ginger peppermint house. Okay, so gently pushing with the plunger. Now, one of the problems I have had is air bubbles. With the plunger, you can definitely easily get air bubbles packed in, and that can be slightly problematic. Okay, let's go ahead and start frosting this. I'm going to just move the camera down just a little bit so that we can get a better view, and I tilt this at an angle. You should be able to see all the things that I'm doing while frosting this little building. Okay, I'm going to start with my frosting line at the top of the building. So I'm just going to push with the plunger. That angle is not quite working for me. Let's try moving that. There we go. That's slightly better. Now, if we can just start to get the frosting moving, we will be in good shape. Okay. So the hardest part is getting this started. All right, there we go. Just push and try to get the frosting out. I'm hoping to kind of get some waves and ripples, but this part can be tricky. There we go. All right, I like that. And I want to do a better job in this direction. So I'll start here and good. All right. Next, I'm going to turn the building and I'm going to try to do some edging along the side of the roof. Just like that. I'm going to push that down. This can be a little stiff when it first gets started, but when it's done, it looks spectacular. And it is hard to get it to stick when you first start with the frosting piece, but it is absolutely worth the wait. Okay, let's try that. Move that back into focus. Okay, now if we can just get the plunger moving, we'll be in good shape. There we go. All right. Just moving that along, up one side of the roof and down the other. Okay, perfect. Now let's see if I can just... Got a little too much there. We'll just brush that off. Just like that. Nice. Okay. Next, I'm going to try to go around the windows. This is going to be slightly harder. Let's move that up. Okay. Now let's see what's going to be a good angle. Let's go like that. Okay, I'll try to do it like this. We're going to try to outline the windows. Good. Okay, just dab that part off and add a little splotch right there. Okay. Not too bad. Let's see if I can do this one a little bit neater. I'm going to start here and work my way around the window. This part is really fun, but it can be slightly challenging. Oh, there we go. Now I'm getting a nice flow. Okay, good. So now I'm going to rotate this and we're going to work on the side. I'm going to run a line of frosting up by the roof down to the bottom of the building. I'm just going slowly since I would like to try to get some texture. Okay, that seems to work. Brush off the extra little bit. And let's try the other side. All right, starting right here. Oh, good. There we go. And I'm going to try to go around at the base as well. Just overlap that little piece there and add a little bit of frosting down here. All right, good. Now I can just brush that off. There. This is definitely the tricky part, but it is very fun. I love seeing the house come together like this. All right, turning this over. Now I want to add some frosting along the back. I'm going to start low and work my way up. Good. That seems to be working very well. And down. Very good. Okay, and I'll break off that little piece. Perfect. Turning the house. We've got a couple more spots to work on. Let's see, how am I going to do this? I'm going to try to do the base first, perhaps, or... No, I'm going to work my way from top to bottom. Let's start here. And we're just going to push the frosting out and try to get that to stick to the edge of the building. There we go. And then along the bottom, whoop, continuing that there. Good. Excellent. And turning the building. Now we just have one more corner to go down. So I'm starting that under the roof, working my way down, following the base. So far so good. And right there. Okay. Now if I can get that one line at the front of the house, I'm going to be very, very happy. Okay. Just wiping off the nozzle so that I can continue the frosting. Let's see. Can I bring that down? There we go. Alright, I'm going to try for a line along the base. Yep, that looks like it's going to work. One little line along the base. Okay, now we are going to be adding some of the confections. To do that, I'm going to be using a little bit of the frosting, and we're going to use that as a kind of cement. So let's take our piece, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the texture paste. I'm going to take that, and we're going to stick that onto the building right here. Perfect. Now I'm going to be going in with a few of the longer pieces and some candy canes, and we're going to be adding those as well. I'm going to start with the candy canes, and we're just going to press those into the building, kind of as a little crisscross, like that. Oh, that is too darn cute. All right, I like that. And now I want a couple of the longer pieces. These are going to go at the four corners of the house. All right, I need to bring in my little bucket so I can find those long pieces. Got quite a few candy canes in here, but we should have 4 of the longer pieces. 3 and 4. Okay, good. And we'll set the rest of the candy canes aside for the moment. We will come back to those in part 3. So for these, we're going to be putting them on the edge of the building, and I'm going to need to trim these off. To do that, I should be able to use the tonic snip scissors. The clay is pretty soft, so it's not going to be overly difficult to cut. Well, let's see. These are the scissors I've got right now, so let's just take that and we will snip. All right, good. That's just going to make that easier. And see, I want to flip that so the uneven side is hidden. There we go. That would be support number 1 on the edge of the building. We're just going to turn the building, and we'll put this over here as a rough measurement. Just like that. I will snip this off and add that to the house. Okay, there we go. That's number 2. We're going to add that right here. Ooh, that looks so good with the sparkles. Nice. And number 3 will be going over here. Let's cut off that extra little bit. There should be good. We'll take that and press that in. Good. All right, last piece. Rough measurement. Take that, snip off the little end. Good. And we'll put that down. All right. Oh my word. That is looking so cool. Here is our little house. This is our Peppermint Gingerbread house. Now I just need to do one more thing for finishing touches, and then this will be complete. So the last thing I'm going to do is add a few speckly bits with some picket fence. And to add the speckles, we're going to be using the splat brush. So I'm just going to put a few drops off to the side, and we're going to go in with the splat brush. All right, let's get the house over here. I'm going to center that. Make sure all of our pieces are staying put. Getting the splat brush ready. Okay. So just very, very lightly, we're going to splatter this. There we go. Ooh, that looks good. All right, and I'll just turn that. I also want to get the roof too and the sides. Very good. Just want to get those little speckles because I'm hoping that's going to kind of look like powdered sugar. All right, turning the house. Might as well do this side too while we're here. Good. Turn again. Oh, that candy cane doesn't quite want to stay, but we'll just stick that back. All right, continuing our splattering and making sure that we're getting the roof. Good. Ooh, that has such a great powdered sugar look. And turning it back to the front, I think I want a few more speckles over here if I can get them. There we go. Okay. And this little house is done. Here is a close-up of our finished gingerbread peppermint house. The details are making me so happy. I love the way the frosting turned out, and I'm very pleased with the shingles and the sparkly confections. Thank you so much for joining me here for part 2 of the Funkie Junkie Inspiration Avenue Saturday Showcase, part 2. So, until next time, happy crafting.